this computer. Okay, perfect. So welcome to your weekly Babe Bootcamp. I'm excited to host this call with my business partner, Lisa. We got some exciting things to share with you today. Today, I'm going to talk about setting systems, not goals. So setting systems, not goals. Yeah, drop some fire and drop some one. Are you guys excited? I want you guys to really take this into consideration when you're thinking about setting, your goals and how you're going to get there. Because for me, this has personally helped me, right? Because I think we all do this. And I think this is going to give you guys a really good perspective, because I think a lot of people struggle with goals. A lot of people struggle with goals, right? Does anyone here struggle with goals? I want you guys to drop a number 2 if you struggle with goals. If you struggle with goals, be completely honest here. I know, I struggle with goals, 100%. And goals could be, anything. It could be fitness. It could be work related. It could be anything. Family, relationships, whatever the thing is, goals are goals, right? Yeah, we all struggle with goals. So I have a love-hate relationship with goals, right? Because on one side, it makes you feel really good, right? You're like, yeah, I hit a goal. And then on the other side, it makes you feel like shit when you don't hit them, right? It makes you feel like shit. So for me, yes, I like goals, but I'm not like completely aligned with it. Not completely. And hey, if goals have been working good for you, and once you set them, you hit them, and it's good, you're like, hey, I can't wait for the next goal I'm going to hit. If it makes you feel good, then keep doing it. Keep doing them, right? So I'm not here to say that you don't need them. You definitely do, but that's not the only thing you need, right? So you're going to hear whatever today, and you're going to implement it. I hope you do. But most of you are going to really like what I have to say today, right? And this is about goal setting. It's about goal setting. Sorry, I keep getting sidetracked because everyone's coming in the chat. It's about goal setting, right? And why are goals maybe not the most successful way to reach success, right? Do you guys, I'm going to keep this a little bit interactive right now. Drop a goal in the chat, anything. If it's a rank, if it's an income, if it's a fitness, if it's a health, if it's a relationship, if it's property, if it's whatever, drop a goal in the chat. I know for me, I'll go first. One of my goals is to buy my next house, right? I want my own investment property, another one. And yeah, to hit emerald. Sapphire before Christmas, ruby, change 50 lives in this year. Perfect. Anyone else? Come on. We have 28 people on this chat. What's your goals, guys? Retire my parents and brother. Amazing, Laura. I love that. Me too, actually. My dad's been working where he's a business owner, but he's been working every single day. Anyone else? Retire my parents, diamond, ruby, get married and buy a house. Yes, amazing. Ruby. I love that. And I want you guys to write this down, like write it down on a piece of paper, what your goal is, what you just shared with me, right? Because we're going to come back to this, right? And it could be any type of goal. Like I said, it doesn't always have to be about the rank here, right? It could be anything, because guys, we have life outside of this, right? Goals are goals. And what I'm going to talk about today is going to help you get to any of those goals that you have for yourself, right? Okay. So I'm here to say that goals are they're not sufficient enough to hit just your goals, just setting goals, right? And there was this author, Adam Altler, funded a 100K account by next month. Hey, let's go, Patrick. There's this author called Adam Altler, right? And he wrote a book called Irresistible, and he talks about goal setting. And he says goal setting is fascinating because it's sort of a broken process. Everyone's like, oh, what do you mean it's a broken process? That got my attention. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we've been goal setting since since I was in university. What do you mean? But you're always hearing about goals, SMART goals, setting goals, right? Goals that are realistic, goals that aren't realistic, small goals, big goals, right? You're always setting goals. So why is it broken? Like, why is it a broken process, right? Because the standard narrative is that in order to change your habits, change anything that comes between your success, right? Or comes between your performance is number one, set a goal and then try really, really hard to hit it, That's the standard narrative, right? Everybody knows that. Try really, really hard to hit it no matter what. Don't stop. You got this, right? And if you haven't achieved that goal, it's probably because you don't have the willpower. You don't have the grit. You don't have the perseverance. You don't have what it takes, right? That's a standard narrative. And we tell ourselves that. Haven't you ever heard, like, haven't you told yourself that? Like, drop some energy. Haven't you, like, drop a 1 if you agree. Haven't you told yourself that before? I have. I put myself down all the time, right? And some people even do it worse. Some people are so hard on themselves. You feel guilty. Yeah, exactly. Right? And you tell yourself, maybe because I'm lazy, I don't have what it takes. Maybe I'm just not as motivated. Maybe I don't really want it that hard. I'm just pretending, or maybe I think I want it, but I really don't, right? Because you haven't achieved it. You're like, I didn't hit my goal. So did I not want it hard enough as the other person that did? We tell ourselves these things. I've done it numerous times. I still do it. And I have to catch myself. And the reality is that setting a goal and working really, really hard towards it is not enough. And that's why it's a broken process. It's a broken model. Right? So why does Adam say that? Why does Adam say that? If your goal is to achieve X, Y, Z, whatever, why does he say that? Because of obviously this, right? And like I said before, one of my next goals is to buy another, income property, right? And so when I achieve that goal, I know, I'm like, oh, I have succeeded, right? I have succeeded, I made that goal. I'm going to be happy now. And, that's great. That's the goal. Right. And I'm determined to get there as fast as possible, right? And some of you do, because, we know how to work hard. People love, we always say success loves speed, right? And we're going to do whatever it takes to get there. But sometimes, actually, most of the time when we get there, the feeling of that is, it doesn't last that long. It doesn't last that long. You're like, okay, well, what's the next thing then? Right? And what if you don't hit your goal? That means you weren't working hard enough. Like it's a broken system, right? And think about this: the whole process of you reaching that goal, like the whole, like the path that you've taken to reach that goal, or for not to, you're in a failure state because you haven't reached that goal yet, right? You're constantly in a failure state until you hit that goal, and then you're like, oh, there's like a small relief. So the whole time leading up to that goal, you're in a failure state. Does that click for anybody right now? Like what the direction of this is where we're going? Because setting a goal is very easy. It's just a title, but there's a lot more to it. There's layers to this, right? There's layers to it. So I haven't bought my second property yet, right? It's been like 2 years since I set this goal. I'm like, yeah, I want to make sure that, I get my second property. I take care of my mom. And for those of you that don't know, and I'm an Indian woman. So like, that's like, oh my God, it's very different, right? It's very different. And I haven't hit my goal yet. So I've been in a failure state for like a year and a half, right? I mean, that could have definitely got to me. It did get to me before. I had to disconnect from that. Because most of the time during a process of achieving a goal, all you're getting is some sort of negative feedback that you haven't achieved that goal yet, right? You're in the process of achieving that goal, but you're in constant negative feedback because you haven't achieved it yet, especially if you gave yourself a timeline, right? I haven't lost 10 pounds yet, or I haven't retired my parents yet. I haven't bought that property yet. I'm not that rank yet. And for such a long time, you're existing in a failure state, and you might get a little closer. You might get a little excited for a short period of time, but it's not enough. You haven't reached the goal yet. It's the goal that you're waiting for, right? And there's a lot of failure happening until you get there. What does that do to you subconsciously? You guys ever thought about that? Right? Messes you up. Yeah. And oftentimes, when you do hit a goal, small or even if it's big, it's anti-climatic. Like it's anti-climax, if that makes sense. It's a massive anti-climax. It's more like, oh wow, like, you know, that's cool. It's not as fun as you thought it would be, right? But that's not how the way it should be. It's not supposed to feel that way. It's not supposed to hit you like that. It's actually not. And if you've ever felt that, yeah, like you know what I'm talking about. A lot of successful people say this. People who have achieved really, really high things in their life. They've beat records, even athletes. You ask them to describe, hey, how did it feel like when you reached your goal? And they say, hey, it was incredibly anticlimax. They do say it. Have you ever, you know, like heard, like watch an interview of an athlete, you know, that has, you know, you should. What was that book that I was reading? I think it was Jordan. Was it Jordan's book? Yeah. There's a lot of references in that too for the same thing. Right? You set a goal, you hit it, and you're like, meh, you're happy for a small period of time, but it's kind of unsatisfying. Still getting people in, right? Unless it has massive benefits to it. Like, for instance, I went to university, I got my psychology degree, but when I got it, it was like, oh, I was like, all this work for a piece of paper. Did I pursue it? No, but like, it was one of those things. It was one of those things where you're like, oh, college diploma or university degree, and you're like, oh, I just put it on my wall to look at. Fantastic. 4 years of hard work. Very anticlimactic, right? Like, it's just like, what? Something so unsatisfying unless something special happens with it, right? For reaching that goal. I promise you I'm getting to this point, but I hope you guys are, you know, this is massaging a little bit, right? But the goal is just it's just a title. It's a signpost. It's a label without a major benefit, right? It's not going to nourish you psychologically. And I love talking about this because guess what? I study psychology at university. So I like talking about this stuff, right? But it doesn't nourish you psychologically. It's just a title. For me, I was like, wow, great. I don't even know where it is, actually. I moved into this house and I don't know where my diploma, my degree is. I don't know. I don't really care for it. Right? And then you're chasing the next high. It's like, you know, let's jump to the next high. It's like you're chasing a high, but you're not actually getting high. You're just chasing the buzz, right? And that's what it feels like. So if you look at life as a series of goals, it's a period of being a failure and small success, and it's then a continuous cycle. Period of failure, small success, period of failure, small success. It's just like a small little buzz. You don't really get drunk, you know, you don't really get, you know, you're not there. For example, who has a Fitbit or who has one of those smartwatches? Laura, yeah, Fitbits. It was such a hype, right? Like Fitbit when it just came out, like I have a smartwatch. You know, I have a goal. I'm gonna hit 10,000 steps. My goal every day is to walk 10,000 steps. How did you feel when you hit 10,000 steps? Anyone have that goal? There's a lot of people that have that goal. Trust me, I see it on social media all the time. 10,000 steps, hit my goal for the day. Small little satisfaction, right? You hit it and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Pushes you, right? It does push you. But the satisfaction, like once you hit it, let's say, you know, you're like, hey, I want 10,000 steps. You hit it and you're like, okay, well, how can I push harder? Tomorrow, I'm going to aim for 11,000 steps. I know I'm like that. I'm like, how can I do better a little bit, right? Because obviously you're trying to progress. You're trying to be better than what you were yesterday. As soon as you hit the goal, some people hit, you know, but it's very anticlimax is what I'm trying to get to you guys. It beeps. You hit it. You know, the beep gets old. You're like, that's it. 10,000 steps, just a beep. Cool. Thank you. Right? You're trying to reach that goal. You're excited. You work towards it. You hit it and you're like, oh, that's cool. So what's next now? Now it's done. It's not as exciting anymore. you know, since like maybe the first time you hit it. It loses its excitement over time, right? You kind of get tired of it. And the same thing happens with your goals. And it could be the smallest thing. It's just not exciting anymore. So sometimes we go off on trying to hit a goal, you know, whatever, and we don't listen to our bodies. We don't listen to our intuitions and what our body is telling us, right? We push ourselves so much to get these steps in, but we don't listen and say, oh, like, how is our body responding to it over time? You get a goal, you have such a big emphasis on it, you reach that goal, you're cool, you get it. And then, you know, until the next one, you're still going to be in a failure process until you hit the next one. You know what I mean? It's a cycle, right? And our body's always telling us things, giving us signals of why it's so unfulfilling over a period of time. Why is it so unfulfilling over a period of time? Kind of like New Year's. Do you guys celebrate New Year's? I'm assuming you do. And, you know, for the longest time, it's all hyped up. New Year's is a big hyped up thing, right? You have to buy a shiny dress. You have to look the part. You have to buy tickets. You know, you want to go out. You want to go to the club, like whatever the plan is. Tickets are like $100, $200 for like all you can eat and drink and whatnot. I remember going back then when it was a hype that you would get dressed up, this build up, and you get there and it's crowded. You're standing in line for an hour, freaking hour, right? It's cold. If Canada, you're cold, right? And it's expensive. And you're like, that's it. That's a joke. It's anti-climax. It doesn't do anything. For the last 2-3 years, I sit my ass at home. I watch New Year's on the TV with some champagne and my family and friends. I'm like, this is my jam. Like, this is my jam. That's where I'm the most comfortable with, right? But you're expecting so much from a night, and it's so disappointing when you get there. Because you're like, oh, right? It's overplayed. It's a joke. Yeah, Laura, it's a joke, right? And the other problem is with guys is that goals is inherently, if you're setting just goals, it's not actually telling you how to get there, right? It's not telling you how to get there. It's not getting you to work because you're feeling like a failure until you get there, right? So figuring how to get there is a whole separate procedure, but I think I've made my point where, you know, goal setting is just not all of it. Right? It's not all of it. So what do we do instead of setting a goal? We create a system. We create a system. Systems rather than goals. So it doesn't mean you're not going to set a goal. It doesn't mean that you're not going to do that, right? But system is how you're going to get there. Goals are one-time events. Systems are what's going to get you there. Goals are just something that happens once. Systems are a process that you follow on a regular basis in the general direction that you want to go. So goal is the destination, system is the journey. Goal is the destination, system is the journey, right? And goals are not useless. They're not useless, but they're not as effective without a system, right? And the more you focus on them, or focus in them, the more you feel like you're in failure state. So set the goal, forget about it, and let's focus on the system. That's the whole point here. So what's a system? You know, you guys, you know, once you know what the goal is, obviously, you gotta figure out like what is a system? Focus on the system, because just focusing on the goal it becomes counterproductive because you're not going to break out of this cycle. And for me, it took me a while to figure that out for myself. I do have a goal in mind, but I'm focusing on my system right now and how I'm going to figure that out for myself. How I'm the most productive. For example, writing a book. Maybe your goal was to write a book. Actually, I'm writing a book right now. It's pretty much done. The whole NFT book. For those of you that have been following me for a while, you guys know. So I'm writing a book right now. It's pretty much done. But writing the book in general, I was very overwhelmed. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do it. So example, writing a book. If your goal is to write an entire book, let's just not focus on the book itself, right? Because if you're focusing on the book itself and you're focusing on the 100,000 words that you have to complete, that's overwhelming. You're going to get discouraged and it's going to take you forever to do it. Instead, let's focus on the system, right? Because focusing on the entire book is going to make you feel like a failure. And that's a personal example that I can relate to, right? It's very anticlimactic because it's like you have so many things to do during your day and you're like, how am I going to finish this 100,000 word book, right? But I had to put a system in place. So let's set one up. It's for this book example, let's set one up. It's going to be very simple, right? So for 1 hour a day, this could be a system, right? For 1 hour a day, I'm going to sit in front of my computer and I'm going to do what I can, right? I'm going to do what I can in front of the screen for 1 hour. I'm not going to worry about how many words I write. I'm not going to worry about the book itself. I know that my goal is to, yes, finish the book, but the system is what's going to help me finish it. So I'm going to stay 1 hour focused. It doesn't matter which day, which hour it is. I mean, you can definitely try it out in the beginning, but I'm going to sit for an hour and just do what I can. And John C. Maxwell, actually, there's an example. You guys obviously know who that is, right? We all know who John C. Maxwell is. He's awesome. He has written so many books. And I remember him saying in a podcast that he talked about this. The guy, he writes 3 books at a time. One he's planning. So the one that he's planning to write, the one that he is writing, and the one that he's finishing. And he completes them all. Like he writes so many books per year. It's crazy. He writes it 1 day at a time, 1 word at a time, every single day. And that's how he finishes his books, because he has a system. If he thought about, I have 3 books that I need to complete at the end of the year, and they're all 3 of them are 100,000 words, like that's overwhelming, isn't it? You guys still with me? You know? And there's another example. I'm getting ready for my wedding like next year, right? So the gym example, I remember when I first started going to the gym, it was very overwhelming. I know a lot of you guys can agree, right? But there was this story about like an overweight person, and he was struggling to lose weight. He felt so intimidated going to the gym. He struggled to just show up because he was so nervous. And for the first couple of weeks, what his trainer said, he's like, just show up for 5 minutes. Just show up for 5 minutes every single day for the next 2 weeks. Don't work out. Just put on your clothes, go to the gym. Don't touch a machine. Just show up for 5 minutes and then drive back home. That was his goal. That was his plan for 2 weeks. Right. And that's literally what he did. It was in Atomic Habits. That's where I read it. Sorry. Atomic Habits is also an amazing book, right? It kind of goes and aligns with everything that I'm saying right now, but it's forming small habits, eventually creating a system, exposing yourself so that when you are ready to go, it's not as overwhelming. And it doesn't matter, what you do at the gym. It doesn't matter about your form. It doesn't matter how you look. Just 5 minutes. Yeah. Atomic Habits helped you a lot. Yeah. Hala. Like it's an amazing book. If you guys have not read it, read it. Right. But it seems silly. Like, oh, just 5 minutes. That's not going to do anything. But for him, it worked. He needed to do that. Because systems work. And if you stick to it, you're going to be achieving something. Even if it's just showing up for 5 minutes, you achieved something. Right. Okay. People are still coming in. You guys are late. So the focus, like I said, is not about, like in that example, it's not about losing weight, right? It's not about being amazing. It's not about looking, the best or having the most intense workout. It's just about showing up. And that means for that person, that was achieving something. So as long as you stick to the system, you're achieving and succeeding, and you end up setting the same goal. It's still the same goal, but the framing of it is just a little bit more effective. It's framing that is working for you. Right. And we talk about this. My goal is not going to be the same as, Alina's goal. It's not going to be the same as Danny's goal. Daniela's goal is going to be very different. Right. Our framing is going to look very different. Right. So And that's essentially when you focus like that, when you actually create a system, you're going to start to realize how your brain is reacting to it, the positive feedback that your body's feeling, that your brain is seeking, because we are constantly seeking positive feedback. Nobody wants to feel like a failure, especially in this industry. Nobody wants to feel like that. So that's why you want to achieve a goal, is to feel satisfied, that you're striving for something great, right? And so if you continue to feel that you're not satisfied, that you're not reaching a goal, how is that gonna help you, right? You're gonna put yourself down. And a system is geared is geared to psychological well-being, right? It's going to help you feel better in your progress as long as you stick to a system and you're succeeding. And goals don't do that. Goals are just titles. So I want you guys to keep that in mind. And I like the idea of a system, to be honest. For me, it works because I'm not so overly attached to my goal, you know. And when you have such a long-term goal, and we want to hit diamond, we want to hit, you know, these ranks, and we want to retire our parents, and you know, we know that's not going to happen overnight. When we have these big goals, right? And it's been a while since you hit them, it's been a while since you got closer, it's going to bring you down. And for me personally, it has, right? It has, but I had to disconnect from that feeling, from that goal. And I have to focus on the system, right? Because when you are focused on the goal, you're actually pushing it away. You're self-sabotaging. You're in a self-sabotaging state. So, and you're going upstream. It's like you're going against a current, right? And you tend to disconnect to that goal. You forget about it. And that's why I would say, write your goal down and make sure, you know, you're working towards it, but you need a proper system in place, and your system is going to look very different than mine. Very different. And, you know, that's what's going to help you feeling disappointed, right? And your goal will get achieved. In Atomic Habits, like James Clear, he says, he's like, we do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems, right? We do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. That narrative we talked about before, right? Set a goal and work really, 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 really hard. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And you start to think you're too lazy. You're unmotivated. You suck at everything because you're not what? Because you're failing, because it's not it. It's not you. It's not the emotion. It's the system, right? You're failing because the system that you currently have right now is not working. So don't blame yourself, blame the system. I give you guys permission. I had to give myself permission. Like, it's the system. I don't have a proper system. That's why I'm feeling like this. So I have to tweak it. I have to fix it. And the most motivating system is the system of progress. So even if it's just 5 minutes, that's all you need, right? So if you shift your mindset a little bit to, it's not me, it's a system, you can change the system, right? And then we focus on that. We test it out. There's a whole bunch of systems out there. We test it out. You find the right one that's for you. And in Atomic Habits, is change your environment. Sometimes it's your workplace, it's your desk space, right? It's your social environment. Who are you surrounded by every single day? I know top leadership here, we all have the same thing. We write our manifestations, you know, everybody likes self-development. We like journaling. Some people go to the gym or they do something active. Some people wake up early. Like, there's a system, right? And when you're in the same social environment with people, what is going to happen? You're going to change. You're going to do things in sync, right? And sometimes it's just that, having a dedicated space so that all you do is when you sit down, you know, you're in work mode, right? Keep your big ass goals that you guys have, because I have some big ass goals, right? Keep them, but break it down. Yeah, don't be afraid to fall big, to dream big. Exactly, right? And find your personal strategy. You have to find your personal strategy. So find what works best for you. I'm the type of person where I don't like the same thing every single day, like the routine, you know, repetition. And I know for some people it works. And if it works, like, awesome. But for me personally, it doesn't work. I get bored. But I know that I have personal development. I go to the gym. I know I have certain things I need to do, certain calls, and I get it done no matter what. So it looks different for everybody, and that's okay. But find a system that works for you, right? So let's go back to that book example. And I'm going to help you just kind of put things into perspective. So let's say, I don't know, Bob is writing a book, right? And his system is, I'm going to work 1 hour a day, right? And he's going to do it after work. And that's a system. He's like, I'm just gonna do 1 hour a day after work and I'm gonna see how it goes. After a few weeks, he feels a little bit tired. He's like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit like groggy. Is it him or is it the system? It's the system, right? So he's like, oh, let me test out different times. Let me test it out in the morning before I go to work, right? Then he tests it out in the evening. Maybe, he needs to take a nap after work. It's not a lack of discipline, it's a system, right? And he starts testing it out and he's like, oh, I find that I'm most productive in the morning before I go to work, right? Because when I come back from work, I want to chill. I want to relax. I want to spend time with my family or do something fun, right? He tried it out for a few weeks and he's like, oh, he felt like he was losing motivation again. Like he wasn't concentrating. It worked for like 3 weeks. And then after he's like, I don't feel concentrated anymore. Is it him or is it the system? It's the system. So what can Bob do? What did he do to change the system, to feel more concentrated and motivated? You know what he did? He researched things online and he found out that it's maybe his workplace, his space. He needs a place, a desk, a designated place to just write, right? And he researched and it said it would make a conscious connection, his brain will, to a dedicated workspace. So when he's on there, he knows he has to work. He has one task in mind. That's all he has to do. He just has to show up, right? It's not him, it's a system. And again, further, he's starting to feel motivation problems again. What does he do? He Googles a little bit more. He finds out another solution. And then what he came across, and you guys can even Google this, it's a 2-minute rule, right? So it works in every category. I've actually tested it too, but it's a 2-minute rule, right? Example, if you're wanting to write a book, the 2-minute rule is sit down and open the book. I hope you guys are writing this down. Sit down and open the book. That's a 2-minute rule. You're a mother and you have a hectic lifestyle. You need to fold the laundry. The 2-minute rule is to sit down and fold a sock, right? You want to go to a yoga session, 30-minute yoga session, 45-minute yoga session, and you're like, oh, the 2-minute rule is that you take out your yoga mat. Okay. You want to study. You're trying to get through, some courses or whatever that you're taking, and you're not motivated. The 2-minute rule is read half a page. 2-minute rule is read half a page. If you're going for a run and you feel unmotivated, I know when I go to the gym, same thing. You're going to just put on your shoes and tie your laces. That's a 2-minute rule. And guess what this 2-minute rule does to you subconsciously and consciously, actually, is that if you can do it for 2 minutes, you can do it for longer. And it gets you in the flow of doing that thing. And so if you do 2 minutes of it, you're going to complete your task. Right? So the system is always evolving and it gets better and better and better, but you're not blaming yourself in the process. You're just improving the system. That's it. Right? So the system successfully is to wake up at 7 a.m. every morning and writing 2 minutes, right? Going back to that book example. That's his system now. So he wakes up every single day and he writes for 2 minutes in the morning. And even if he doesn't, even if it's just 2 minutes, that's okay. But his goal is 2 minutes. He ends up writing more, right? Obviously. But it gets you in the flow of something because you're constantly trying to improve it. You're programming your mind to just be ready for 2 minutes and then you're going to get into the flow of it, right? And instead of worrying about the goal, you're going to work in peace and you're going to focus on the system because 2 minutes, you're like, oh, that's just 2 minutes. That's easy. You're going to feel accomplished, right? And this is how you promote good habits naturally. naturally, right? So go back to the goal that we talked about, you wrote down when you first opened this call, and I want you to think about the system that you're going to implement to get there, right? Replace the goal with a system. And in Atomic Habits, right, he says the system should be attractive, easy, and satisfying, right? And you're constantly going to revise it. You're constantly going to revise it. And then apply the 2-minute rule. Apply the 2-minute rule and see how it's working for you. You know, so I completely fell in love with the system because I feel like it really allows you to hustle in peace. Like, you know, we all are in the hustle mentality. We have so many things going on. We're so excited. We have, you know, we're pumped. We have all these amazing trainings, and like, we're just, you know, we overwhelm ourselves sometimes with so much information, and we're always in that, you know, what's next, what's next, what's next. So this process will allow you to hustle in peace, stick to your system. It will come to you. Everything will come to you, and that's it, right? Like, and if you can't figure it out, Google things. Google things. There's so many resources at your fingertips. And sometimes we feel like we're in like a victim mentality. No, Google things, because there's information out there for you to apply today. Right. And, you know, if that's like, hey, I need to listen to high frequency music. I need to, like, you know, put on some calming music. I need to maybe drink lots of water in between to keep myself energized. I need snacks. I need small rewards in between my small goals, like whatever it is, figure it out, figure out what you need. Right. That's it. So I hope this encourages you guys. I know I went a little bit over time because I'm really passionate about this. I thought this was going to be such a good training because I needed it myself. But let's set the standard here. Let's set systems, not goals. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys implemented it. I hope you guys loved it. Drop some ones, some fire, something in the chat. I need some energy. You know, I want to thank you guys. And we have Lisa coming up next. I'm so excited. Let's give Lisa some, you know, some energy in the chat, guys. Let's drop some energy in the chat. Lisa, I'm so excited for you to come on board. I'm going to make you co-host or host. And yeah, let's start making those systems, guys. But I hope you guys really enjoyed that. Let me just make you add spotlight and make you host.